Alright guys, here's my ruckus. As you last saw it, it was racing up and down the street just fine. You know, when I was riding it, it just took a dump on me. Didn't know what the problem was. Decided to start over. Tore it down. Built it back up again. You know, before I was going to put the head on, I decided to get a second opinion on things. So I took it into the Honda motorcycle shop here in my town, and they basically told me that it wasn't bored out correctly. So what I did was called up the people who I got it done by, and they said to ship it back to them. I have a year warranty, or on the bore itself, or any kind of defects or whatever. So I sent it back. 2 days later they called me, said everything was fine. Maybe a week later I get the bore, I'm putting everything back together, and I'm confident at this point. Put it back together, set the timing the right way, slap it in, set the timing correctly, kickstart it a couple times, and it starts. I'm happy at that point. So I'm riding it, it's riding fine, but it kept on dying on me, and I'm just like wondering, well, what's the problem? I knew I was having electrical start issues, but I didn't really think that was my problem. I just thought the valves needed to be adjusted properly. And I take it into a local shop over here, and they do all the the work. As I get there, it starts up, runs fine, but it's making kind of like a knocking noise. Come to find out, I bring it home, and I'm sitting there kickstarting it because my electrical start wouldn't work, and I'm faced with the same problem again. It's dying, it's not starting, I'm breaking down on the side of the road, having my friends come pick me up. And I'm thinking to myself, what is the problem? So I bring it back in, try to kickstart it, and all of a sudden just the kickstart would not go down. And so I decided to open up the water pump, and come to find out they didn't put the freaking damn cam in all the way. So it snapped one of the bolts inside the cam. So luckily I was able to, well, I didn't do it, but they were able to notch out a little slit to take out the bolt. I could have did it myself, but I was just so aggravated at that point to where I didn't want to do it. And so I decided to just make a last run on it. And so I took it down to a steady garage, and I told them what my problems were. No electrical start. It's dying on me. I have no idea why. And, could you fix it? They were going over it. They're like, yeah. 2 or 3 days later, they call me, and they're like, yeah, we kind of know what the problem was, but it's basically, your ECU, your stator, your flywheel, or this or that. So I'm like, all right, well, fix it. I had a budget in mind what I wanted to spend, which was $300. And they met me at the $300, but then they call me a few days later, like, hey, we've got some more problems. And in my head, I'm like, shit, what is it? It's like, well, your ECU's bad. So I'm like, all right, well, is there a possibility for you to maybe just see if the ECU, putting in a new one and seeing if it works? So they put in a new one, starts up, but then it fries it again. So, there's like, all right, well, it's not the ECU that's, well, it is the ECU that's messed up, but there's something else that's causing it to just burn out. And so, quick breakdown. These are stripped. So this is kind of useless. And the reason why it wasn't starting up was this. If you notice right there's little dents and nicks. And my water pump was bad. This is probably due to me. I don't know how I did this, but it's fucked up. And it was mixing oil. And coolant together. That was causing me to just break down on the side of the road and giving me a hard time to start. So this is how it sits right now. Going back slightly, a few months, I decided to take some time because I was bored to polish my swing arm at an ignition coil. I painted the the cylinder all black down here. And, you know, during the process, Steady Garage put a new flywheel, new water pump, and I bought an ECU off somebody for a good price. You know, it was $60. It was a 2014 ECU. So, you know, like I said, it spent some time over at Steady Garage for 2 weeks, and they were just doing what they can on it to get it started, which they managed to accomplish. You know, I spent $500 plus the ECU, which was $60. And I told them, you know, that's a lot of money to be spending on a Ruckus, and especially the motor. It's just absolutely not worth it. And, you know, they agreed with me. But, you know, this is my project. It was just one of those things that to where you just couldn't really give up on it until you gave it one last try. And that's what I did. I gave it one last try. So here is the result today. It starts up. It starts up just fine. And it runs just fine. It runs better than ever. You know, I'm happy with it. I took it on a ride this weekend, so I rode from my house all the way down to Newhall, which is maybe a good 30 to 40 miles away, and I brought it back to my house. No problems whatsoever. No overheating issues. Well, I'm sorry, it wasn't overheating. No more problems with it just dying. You know, my electrical start works every single time as of right now. You know, it runs strong. It pulls greatly up hills. Keep in mind, this is a 58.1 cc. I compared it to other scooters, 49 cc ones. And this one just, you know, it dominates on it just because of the bigger bore itself. You know, I didn't want to push it too hard. My max speed was, you know, 51. That's no tuck, no nothing, just standing up. Well, seated normally, I should say. It's nothing to be proud of, but you have to think, you know, 51 miles an hour, standing up. Well, not standing up, but sitting down, no tuck. That's very impressive for something like this. You know, was it the fastest scooter out there in this realm, 49 to 58? Probably not, but I'll tell you this much. I was way ahead of the 49 cc's scooters. You know, I'm not dogging them or, you know, trying to make fun of them saying they're slow, because this is slow compared to other scooters too. So I'm still trying to figure things out. You know, the motor's freshly built. It only has less than 300 miles on it, and didn't want to push it so hard. I'm still in the tuning phases. It's basically like restarting all over again. You know, got to keep the RPMs low as possible, you know. To a point you do, yes. Like I said, I'm still new. You know, I may not know what I'm talking about, or I might know what I'm talking about, but, you know, I've got some information. And right now it's running good. I'm happy with it. I'm glad I took it down to Steady Garage instead of keeping it up here and spinning my wheels every day on it and wasting valuable time. You know. So yeah, this is how it sits. I'm going to do some changes. You know, I heard this intake isn't good for it, but right now it's doing just fine. More CVT tuning to come. I'll definitely keep you guys posted on things. Oh, I got my polished my swing arm. You know, pretty happy with it. It could have came out better, but whatever. You know, it's mine. I'm happy with it. So here's my scooter. Like I said, it starts, runs just fine. Muffler sounds good. It's running like it should.